Hi there, friends. Jennifer Neesett here, physical therapist and owner of Fit for Life Physical Therapy here in Concord, Ohio. Thank you for taking this journey with me as I share my story with you, strength for the journey. Here at Fit for Life Physical Therapy, you've heard me say that I believe everyone has a story and everyone's story matters. I thought I would take this time during COVID-19, at the time of this recording, when we are being asked to physically distance ourselves from the people around us, where I cannot physically be in front of you to provide you with the physical therapy that I feel so passionate about. I thought I would share my story with you. Many of you know it, many of you know parts of it, some of you know all of it, but there's power in stories. Have you noticed that? It's our stories that connect us to one another. It's our stories that make us feel happy as we share them, as we think back over them, as we bring our stories to other people. And there is power in sharing your story. So I share my story with you in a way to share my faith with you, my faith journey, my testimony, in hopes that you will find something familiar in my story that will give you strength for your own journey. So in part one of my story that I shared last week, I shared my first true test of physical strength, requiring me to lean on my spiritual strength during the Boston Marathon of 2018. I struggled for quite some time with that experience and wondering why my expectation was so different than what the reality turned out to be. And struggling with knowing that deep down, perhaps God was going to bring something to us in the near future that would require me to practice the same strength to get through. And we didn't have to wait very long after Boston of 2018 before that would be revealed. In summer of 2018, my husband, at the age of 47, would be diagnosed with prostate cancer. For those of you that have lived through that phone call, through that knock on the door, through that experience that brings you to your knees, you will understand what that diagnosis meant. Now, he was wise and strong, far beyond me. He was smart, however, and with a family history, he had been taking some responsible steps for early detection. At the age of 58, his own father was diagnosed with prostate cancer and celebrates his birthday today, 20 years later, a survivor. And fortunately, my husband took responsibility for his health, and at the age of 40 started going for his yearly physicals and getting a simple blood test. Now, my friends watching, for the women that are watching that need to encourage their husbands to do this, or for the men that are watching, early detection is so very critical, because prostate cancer, when detected, is very, very treatable, curable, I would say. But it is the men that fail to take notice, that fail to take responsibility, that end up finding it far too late, that end up losing the battle of prostate cancer. It's a blood test. It's a blood draw. It's a prostate-specific antigen is what they're looking for. And you can start to get that at the age of 40 or younger to see what your numbers are. So fortunately, in our situation, my husband was responsible, and we had a baseline. So when he went for his physical in the spring of 2018, and his numbers took a significant jump, we had data. We would check that PSA a few more times. That would lead to a biopsy, which would be the definitive diagnosis of prostate cancer in about exactly half of his prostate. And the data gathering would commence. There's much I could share here. Anybody that's walked through this has experienced what happens. First of all, it's shock, and then it's data collection, and then it's making a decision. And then I say we were on about the same path, my husband and I, until he had surgery, at which time he went into healing and recovery mode, and I went down the path of grief and depression. Over the entire summer of 2018, caring for him, gathering the data, taking care of the family, attempting to run our ship as my captain was not at his best. The emotions of what prostate cancer and surgery might mean for a marriage, for our intimacy, for my husband, was overwhelming. I learned a lot about grieving. I learned a lot during this time about what human nature wants to help, right? So the moment this diagnosis was shared, and my husband was very, very eager and open and wanted to share our story publicly from the beginning, people want to help. Well-intentioned, and please don't take offense as I share my heart now on the other side of this. Immediately upon receiving a diagnosis like that and walking through these early stages, the only thing that I wanted to hear was, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'll pray for you." I didn't want to hear other people's stories of hope, and that may sound terrible, but we were a 40-year-old couple, and the majority of people that we were seeing facing this diagnosis were 20 or 30 years older than us. I didn't want to hear that someone's uncle had it and he was fine. I didn't want to hear that someone's grandfather had it and he was fine. It elicited this anger in me that I'm embarrassed to admit, but I'm sharing with you honestly, because this was my husband. It was our marriage. And I was pretty sure they couldn't tell me that the man in their life was fine. So I've learned a very important lesson walking through that. One, when someone goes through something hard, meet them where they are. Tell them how sorry you are for them. Offer to be there for them, but only offer advice or encouragement if it's sought out, if it's asked of you. They just may not be ready, and we have strong faith, so I knew he would be fine. I needed to walk through the grieving process myself. I also needed to recognize that what happened in the fall following his procedure and his recovery myself was grief. I didn't realize until it was suggested to me that I was grieving. I was grieving because something had happened to the man in my life and I had no control over it, and there was a loss. He came through surgery fine, and he's fine. But never again the same. You're never the same after that diagnosis. I would say he's stronger than he was before, but we are forever changed. And it really is acceptable, and I had to allow myself to say that I was a cancer survivor also, because cancer came into our home, into our marriage, and it did make us stronger, but it changed us forever. And I had to have permission to go through the grieving process myself, differently than my husband. So Strength for the Journey Part 2 was surviving and thriving through a prostate cancer diagnosis. A journey that required also for me to lean so hard on my faith, just like I had for the 4 hours and 6 minutes of the Boston Marathon. Only now I would have to really dig in and lean so much stronger on my faith for such a longer period of time, for something that felt a lot harder to overcome. So we walk through these struggles and we learn something from them, and we grow from them. And I don't believe that you can, they say, how does it go? Bad things happen for a reason. I don't believe, but I do believe that you can find reason behind everything that does happen to you. You can glean meaning from it. You can take something and good can come out of even the hardest challenges. So that's part 2, prostate cancer. And we would survive that and be on our road to recovery before the next challenge would come, the next struggle, the next challenge that would require strength for the journey. Only this time it would be personal. This time it would be something, again, that I had to walk through. And I will leave you with that. Thank you for following along on this journey with me, and stay tuned for part 3 of my Strength for the Journey series as I share my story with all of you. Thank you so much, you guys. Until next time.